Are you looking for a fast, fun, and easy beginner level stitching project? Of course you are. Well, I've got you covered. All you're going to need are cookie cutters, craft store felt, a stamp pad, some pins, some thread, and chenille needles. Chenille needles have a large eye and a nice sharp, pointy tip. Begin by taking your favorite cookie cutter design, opening up that stamp pad, and pressing the sharp side of the cookie cutter onto the stamp pad. Now that you've got that covered, you're going to place it on top of the felt, not in the middle because that'll make your art teacher's eye twitch, but a little bit more toward the corner because that will conserve or save some of that craft felt. Lift it up very carefully so it doesn't smear, and would you look at that? You now have your design. You're going to stack two pieces of felt together and then pin them together with a nice sharp pin, so be careful. Stick the pin through both pieces of fabric and then slide it through just like so. That way the two pieces of fabric are pinned together. That is your goal. Slide it through. And now you are ready to cut. When you are cutting out two pieces of craft felt, you want to make sure that your scissors are nice and sharp. So if you get a pair that isn't cutting the felt very well, get a different pair. One thing that might help is to do what's called choking the scissors. That means you're going to slide the fabric all the way to the back of the blade of the scissors because then you have more leverage and the fabric will cut out a lot easier. Don't try cutting with the tip of the scissors. Instead, slide it all the way back and make sure to save those scraps. Now we're going to get our thread. Pull it so it's as long as your arm before you snip. Cutting a needle can be tricky, so use a small piece of paper folded in half that I call a hot dog bun, and place your thread that I refer to as a hot dog inside the bun and slide it back so none is sticking out before putting it into the eye or the opening of the needle. Slide it all the way through, and would you look at that? Your needle's now threaded. To anchor it in place, we're going to tie a knot. So make an O. Slide the tail through the hole and pull. You're going to repeat this same process at the very end of the thread. You might even want to have a double knot, which means you're going to tie it twice. Now that that's done, we're ready to do what's called a whip stitch. Slide your needle through the back and bring it around the shape that you're stitching before sliding it through again. Around, because what you're trying to do is create a stitch that goes over the two pieces of fabric that you're stitching together. This will make it so the fluff or stuffing that you put inside of what you're stitching does not come out. This is called a whip stitch. Your needle is whipping around whatever object it is that you are stitching together. You'll want to continue doing this whip stitch until your thread and needle are about as long as your hand. When you get to that point, it's time to tie your knot. Begin by sliding your needle underneath your last stitch, turning your needle around and sliding it inside that little loop. Snip off and then rethread your needle. But if you're about 3/4 the way finished with whatever it is you're stitching, it's time to stuff. If you have small corners like my star does, make sure you put stuffing inside of all those little nooks and crannies first before filling up the middle. Overstuff whatever it is you're creating and then squish the stuffing down and pin together. You're going to pin this closed, making sure everything is all matched up as you pin before you stitch. And then you're just going to pick up where you left off, doing that whip stitch all the way around both pieces of fabric. Notice how I'm holding what it is I'm stitching so that I can make sure I'm going around both. You're going to stitch from one side all the way to the other, making sure to completely close whatever object it is you're stitching, and don't forget to make a knot when you're finished. It's complete. Go ahead and take your pins out and then massage whatever the object is that you've stitched. That way you can spread the stuffing all around. Now let's make a hanger. Go ahead and thread your needle and then bring both ends of the thread together and tie a knot, bringing both of those threads around your finger and taking the tails, put it in the hole and pull. Now you're going to take that needle, slide it into the top of whatever it is you stitched, and before you pull it all the way through, have it go inside that loop or opening, like so. Then you have a hanger, but your needle's still attached. So you're going to want to cut the needle off and then secure it with another knot by just bringing both ends around your finger and slide it into the opening. And now you have a little hanger for your stitching. Now, if all that went really fast, let's do a little review. Grab a cookie cutter, pressing it onto the sharp side, placing it not in the middle of the fabric, but near the edge. Take 2 pieces of fabric, stack them together, and pin in place before you cut. Make sure to choke those scissors and get a pair of scissors that will cut through the fabric. Keep those scraps. Do not trash them. Now, thread your needle and let's do a whip stitch. Remember, that's the one that goes around the edges. Don't forget to tie a knot when your needle and your thread is as long as your hand. Sew almost all of it before stuffing, making sure to go in the nooks and crannies and then pin it together again and stitch closed. When you're finished, you can add a hanger to the top. If you have things like buttons that you want to add or even puffy paint, that could be a fun addition. Most of all, have fun. Sewing takes practice, but I know with practice you can do it. If you need a little bit more help with learning how to thread a needle, tie knots, then check out my other video that shows you how to do the beginning basics of stitching. Have fun!